That's
so
right.
Did you think about that whole decoration when you set it up?
That was my wife. 100% my wife. Yeah.
Well done her.
She's a rock star. Yeah. Anything good that has ever happened in my life, it's because of my wife.
That's good. And you have to keep that attitude. That's going to make you happy for a long time.
Yes. Happy wife, happy life. That's one thing that I've learned early on, and I'm going to, keep it going forever. Good. So, but we were right before we started recording, you were talking about a very awesome story about your relationship with Persians. And since I'm Iranian and both of my parents were born and raised in Iran, they left in 1979. My mom still talks to all her family members in Iran every single week. So I'm dying to hear this story. So if you don't mind, let me hear it.
Sure, with pleasure. So, the Tesla world knows me mainly because of my rating agency experience, right? Because I worked for Moody's and I was a fund manager before that. And after Moody's, I had my own rating agencies. But I left the financial market in 2007. And there I was with my 5 kids living in the south of France and thinking, okay, from now on, I'll look after my nails, right? And after my kids, of course, first. That lasted a couple of weeks. And then I just couldn't stop it. So I had no idea what I would do professionally. And we had quite a big house because with 5 children, you better do. And we were renting it out in the summer to make some extra money, but also to move to travel to California because my husband had some interest in a vineyard still. He still does in California. So we were coming visiting there. So long story short, I saw my accountant and I said, you know what? How do I get that rental revenue, being well tax-wise and whatever? He said, you know what? You should just become a real estate agent. And I thought, what's that? I have no clue. The house we bought, I was not involved. That was my husband's story, whatever. He said, you'll be a really good real estate agent. You just fill out papers, whatever. Became real estate agent, set up my own agency. And so I did that in Mougins, which is a really nice, picturesque little village in the hills of Cannes, where the film festival is. Mm-hmm. And I lived there close to a pond and a big park. And on the other side of the pond and the park was this huge house. And so I don't know. I seem to have been good professional. After a year, I had about 140 villas for rental, and I started doing sales. And a land came up close to that big house. And I said, well, I think I would know a buyer for that. So let me stretch out and see whether I can find who is the owner of that big house. Well, the owner of the big house is the sister of the Shah. And so I first met with her attendants and, got checked and groomed whether I was worthy of her time, which was the case, which I was very happy about. And so I met her actually a couple of times. So we worked together on the rental of her house because she also needed some extra income. And so she rented out that house to events, mainly to weddings and at the film festival, which was still a big story in 2008 and 2009 then. And then she also put the house and some more land on sale. The house never got sold, not in my experience. I think it's still hers, but lots of the land around it got sold, which was really prime real estate. And I had the pleasure of meeting her quite a few times, and just delightful. I mean, and that, there are so many coincidences in life when you meet people unexpectedly, and that was just a great start. And as I told you before, I think there's something going on between Germans and Persians. I've come across them so often in my life. It's always been such a pleasure, and I'm so delighted to meet you today.
Oh my goodness, likewise. Yeah, that's an amazing story. I was like, okay, let's hold that story because I need to hear it, and then I want to send it to my parents, especially my mom. She's gonna love that story. My mom did some travels before she had me, and one of the things that she always talks about was I think Nice in France.
That's it. That's the airport for us.
Yeah, and man, she's like whenever you guys
can I have a shout out to Mama Misab?
Please
tell her I really, really am very, very proud of your son. He's doing great, and thank you for bringing your kids to America.
Oh my goodness, yeah, she's gonna love hearing that. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's been
very dear to my heart.
Oh my goodness, it's been a wild. Yeah, because we were born and raised. My brother and I were born and raised in Spain. So my parents went in Iran. They left Iran in 1979. They went to Spain to further their education, and they had me and my brother. And then we moved to the States in 1999.
So how did they move to the States? I mean, I do know immigration was different then and now, but how did they come here? Were they sponsored by family, or how did they come here?
So my dad.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah, it's so awesome. My dad was he had a temporary visa to come to the States to try and find some sort of profession or career, because Spain at the time just historically had high unemployment, and so my dad was looking for something that something better to move the family somewhere to have more.
How old were you then?
Opportunity. I was 12 when we moved.
Okay.
Yeah, and my little brother was 7.5, right around that age, and. Yeah, he moved, and then I think on the last week, or like one of the last few days before his visa ran out, he was able to find something thanks to my family and one of the connections they had with one of the companies around there. And then he got
it
sponsored.
Was employer sponsored. Oh, great.
Yeah. It ended up being employer. That's right. And then and then he found a job. I honestly think it was in the last week that he had the ability to get it, and it made it happen. And then my mom's like, "We're moving to America." I'm like, "Cool, let's go." I don't know what that means, but let's go. So.
And I think 12 is still a good age. I mean, when we moved 8 years ago, our third, I'm sorry to talk with numbers when I talk about my children, but when you will have 5, you'll talk with numbers. And then I mix up the numbers, then they really hate me. But anyway, so our third was 16. Okay. And that's getting more complicated, right? Because then you have friends, girlfriends, you feel you can project your future, whatever. Sure. So for him, it was a bit tougher. And let me just maybe add that story because it's cute too. And then we can talk Tesla. And I'm sorry for all the people that were hoping for Tesla. It's coming. It's coming.
I love this kind of conversation. Yeah, please.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So we moved in 2014. He was 16. He was really not a happy chap. We moved in July. He was supposed to start school in September. So July and August, I can tell you, when you have a 16-year-old sulking in his bedroom, especially you arrive in your country, and wasn't the best moment. Anyway, so the school organized a beach picnic. That's the nice thing about Santa Barbara, right? To stay away, it's perfect, right? Sure. And so that beach was supposed to start. The picnic was supposed to start at 2. So he had all this planned. So 3 days before, he said to me, "Okay, I won't be there at 2. I'll come at 2:15. I said, "Come on, I just drop you off. You take your towel. You just no. I planned this. It's going to be 2:15. And the next morning, you'll wake up and say, maybe I should be there 5 minutes earlier. The whole thing was 3 days of a break. So anyway, he went to that picnic. It went all well. It's all good. So a couple of years forward, so he's all happy. He's now working in DC. He's a very happy chap. But about 3-4 years ago, he was still studying. He called me prior to coming home and said, "Mom, I just want to tell you something, because, having a German mother comes with some twerk." So he's preparing the land, going, "I have to tell you something. I got a tattoo." Okay. Now you all might find that funny, but as a German mother, I'm not so sure that you find that funny. So I was like, "You are crazy. You got a tattoo. Where did you get a tattoo?" And he was going, "I won't tell you." And I mean, I was going berserk. I was like, "Oh my God, what did he do? Where did he put it?" I mean, the worst things, right? And so, okay, I was telling myself, come on, he's coming home for vacation. Don't overdo it. Don't bring your German side in there again, whatever. So there we come. And so he comes home, already the grin, like you. I mean, it was already grinning. I was like, "Ooh, what's this now?" Opens the door, a big hug. And I'm like going, "Theo, where's the tattoo?" And he laughs his way up, rolls up his T-shirt, and he had engraved the July 2014 date on his heart.
Oh my God.
Isn't that something of our story? And I mean, I felt so bad for being bad, right?
But I love the way he did that, because he knew what the end result was going to be, and so he kind of like poked you a little bit, he poked you a little bit, he prepped you, and then he delivered that beautiful message at the end. Oh my goodness. It's like artful. That was like a very artistic way of delivering the message.
And I mean, and it shows all my flaws in one story, right? Because
Listen,
so there you go. Now you know me.
I get it. Yeah, that's a beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I already really vibed with this conversation, man. It's so easy going. I really. It's the first time we've ever spoken in person. I've been following your stuff on Twitter from time to time, and you've been a very valuable part of the Tesla community. And one of the things that we talked about before we even talked today was that that we may have some things that you and I might disagree on as it pertains to Tesla, which I absolutely love, because I think this is how we further conversation and really bring different points points of views to it. So if you don't mind, let's start with the Tesla topic. I know one thing that you said, one of the things that you mentioned was the PR side of Tesla was something that perhaps you and I wouldn't agree on. And I'm really curious to hear sort of your in-depth thought about that. Maybe we can start there and then see where the conversation goes. How does that sound to you?
Sure, no problem at all. Okay. Yeah. So that's the part I actually tried to prepare. Okay. And then I was said to myself, there's no point because what I'm trying to bring over can't be prepared. The thing is, I mean, I'm absolutely love Tesla. I'm 100% invested, other than a little bit of my IRA in Gary's fund, which is for supporting him, but also because I want to have a little bit something diversified.
This is Gary Black, right?
Yeah, Gary Black, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, nobody should doubt about my full conviction on Tesla. Let's just put that out straight away. Does that mean that I find everything is perfect? No. And I mean, probably my first two stories help you to understand. I'm always trying to optimize, and I'm quite tough on myself, but everybody around me as well. So I found that most recently, and I've been following Tesla now for 2 years, communication gets sparser and sparser. It's Elon and nothing else. And it's very good and very technical on a lot of things, like the impact reports, like the special days, AI day, and whatever. But in the middle, it's just throw it out and eat the beef, right? And I just think Tesla has arrived to a state where doing some concise, factual communication around certain themes without getting into, manipulating or advertising, that's not what I want to do.
Yeah, I can hear you. No problem.
Okay, perfect. So I just think Tesla got to the point where the size now matters, the influence matters. The fact that he wants to purchase Twitter brings in much more focus of much more diversified general media, and the hate that he gets more political, right? He went on the political land. He did it on purpose. When he was on at that summit in Miami with the All In podcast, he chose talking politics. He chose putting out there that next time he's going to vote Republican. So that opens a whole more personal attitude from him, but that brings also in all the haters and all the bad media that you can have in America when you do that, when you go there. And I just think for protecting Tesla, the brand, the staff, the employees, but also all the regulators Tesla will need in the coming months and years, it would just be good to support whatever Elon says. Again, don't get me wrong. I don't want him to talk. He can talk as much as he wants, 100%. But whenever he talks on something that's substantial on Tesla, it is straight away backed up with explanation. Best example is last Friday. Do we lay off people? Do we not? Which type? Whatever. If that on Friday morning would straight away have had one factual, call it blog post if you don't want to call it press release, right? But giving the facts, the whole storm that was created, and that sure enough is noise and will go away. But why create it, right? Try, a little bit smoother sailing. You can avoid it so easily, and why not go that route, right? And then, you will tell me why PR, right? And it's not PR what I want. I want just factual communication.
It's a very, that sounds extremely reasonable, to be completely honest. I think the one thing that often, I'm trying to think as to why there would be a counter to that, and I have a hard time really thinking of one, because if you really think about what happened, if you take the most recent example of the thing that happened with the 10%, the story that came out from the Reuters or whoever published it, that was it's appeared to be factually incorrect around what was actually getting laid off, and the fact that there was color left out around the fact that they're actually increasing headcount net, what it sounds like from that point forward. It took like a day or two for it to be cleaned up by one of Elon's Twitters. I 100% agree with you that if there was some sort of mechanism or something that the company or Elon himself did that came out either ahead of it or at the exact time that it was published, that said, hey, this is exactly what's happening. This is the sort of trajectory of the company. This is how we're thinking about it. The news thing is not correct. Then it would have cleaned up a lot of it. I think one of the things that I'm trying to maybe and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but I'm trying to figure out why the behavior of Elon and Tesla could be this way is perhaps, I don't know if it's a case of maybe Elon doesn't feel like things like this are needed, quote unquote, because of how much demand Tesla has. Yeah. And so like, I'm trying to say here is, okay, so if he does try to fix these things, it's kind of a moot point because the overall trajectory of the company doesn't matter, right? It's still going to keep going up.
And let me address that. And let me address that. And I agree with you. There is, backlog and backlog and backlog. I'm currently waiting for our X-Plaid, and I can tell you, I wish it comes quicker, and it will come soon, but still. But this communication is not just for future clients. I actually don't think it's at all for future clients. Somebody who wants a car. Do you know what Maribara is voting for? Do you know whatever of course you're not ordering a Bolt, but if you would order a Bolt, I think somebody buying a car couldn't care less. And us in our little Twitter sphere, we know it. And the journalists that are implied know it. And the journalists that want to harm Elon get to that because they feel the weakness. This communication will help whom? It will help obviously the journalists that are more neutral, and there are some out there, and there are some that are positive on Tesla, so that will help. I mean, even Rob Mower said in that evening, "Oh my God, I'm confused. I don't know where we are anymore." Right? And when you have confusing information, well, clarify it. So it is for media in the first sense, of course, but it is actually much longer. And that's where you will come into play. It is for current and it is for future employees. Why create a mess? Why? Because, there will be people. I had a discussion with one of the Twitter people that said, well, engineers understand that. Well, maybe engineers understand that, but maybe there are other people who are not engineers that are more soft-hearted, that are more worried, that have to feed 3 kids at home and suddenly feel, oh my God, it may be me. Why create this stress when it could be avoided with a clearer languages and more details? So it's current and future employees, but it's also regulators. And there I come to an example I would like to elaborate on 2-3 minutes if you give me the time.
Please.
When I was a realtor, in my life, I did a lot of training, but most of it was just useless stuff. But when I was a realtor, we had to do a yearly training, which I hated because it was one of those mandatory things. And I thought nothing would come out of it. It was one of the best life lessons I learned. The guy was brilliant, and he explained to us something very simplified that exists in much bigger detail, but I love the simplification of this one, which is always address who listens to you when you want to sell a house. Right now, I'm in a position, I want to sell a house, I get a huge commission if that works, and now I can talk about how wonderful this house is and how thick the walls are and how good this square meter is worth here. But that addresses about 25% of people wanting to buy the house, and why not expand it to 100%? So then he made it very easy. He made it in colors. So most of the Tesla crew I know out there will be in the color blue. Blue are people that are fact-based, that are rational, that are most of the time early adopters of new technology, that find innovative names for their children, that buy a Tesla early. So that's the blue crowd, right? Very factual, very reasoned. And then once they're convinced, they're all in. You have the yellow crowd. The yellow crowd are the artists of this world. So maybe singers, maybe musicians, maybe actors, maybe painters, whatever. When you want to sell something to those crowd, you have to address them completely different than the blue. And there is a meaning of why those colors are so different. Then you have the red crowd. The red crowd, I'm clearly in. They're more outspoken. They take a lot of risks, but they're not always the early movers. Best example in my case is I was for a very long time having my BlackBerry, right? Everybody was telling me, why in the world would you still have BlackBerry? Well, if somebody red is in love with something, that's where they stick to. And then you have the green crowd. Now, the green crowd are people that are very traditional. They will call their children the same names than their grandfathers. There are people who want to do what their neighbor does, that replicate a lot, that are late in the adoption curve. And most people working for government services are in that green crowd, right? And so you have these 4 crowds. Again, they're much better models, but what I like about this one, it is so simplified. Now, if an engineer talks only to engineers, he gets 25% of that market. The blue crowd, right? They will understand it. They will pick it up. Maybe the red crowd like me, because they're in love, they will also pick it up, right? That's how you stimulate the red crowd. You have an emotion. Maybe the artists will say, I see myself in a Tesla. What the heck he talks about? I'm happy anyway. But you will not touch the green crowd. They will not find what they are looking for. They need some stuff that they're used to be able to get acquainted to it. They need more time. And if you constantly ignore these people, yet you need them at one moment in the life cycle of your company, you actually build up barriers where you should burn them down.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, but I'm curious, like, how do you think that the time? So it's I think it makes a lot of sense for Tesla to be able to communicate to 100% of the population in the way that they are best able to receive that information. I think
exactly.
that's factually correct, and I agree with that statement 100%. I think one of the counter arguments to that is that perhaps Tesla is not there yet, and thus maybe right now it's not the right time for them to delve into this.
Okay, now let me challenge you on that one.
Yeah, please.
Let me challenge you on that one. Come on. Elon can do.
Case closed.
Elon can do everything. I know. I mean, he's landing the rockets, right? He's building a car that can drive me to Vegas by itself. I mean, this one is one. Either he's on board and understand it, and he can probably even write an AI where somebody, just sits there and grabs his tweet and puts the facts together, and out it is, right? This one is an easy one to solve. The easiest one. And I'm not even asking, for a comm director who is coming from Harvard and has 20 years of experience. You actually need just some young people having handy all the facts, knowing they can call HR because today's HR is the big topic. Tomorrow call somebody from the AI team. Tomorrow, the next day call somebody else. But you need just one. And it doesn't have to be a person that has the pretension to manage Elon. I don't want anybody to change anything with Elon. The guy is brilliant and he's out there and he's the genius of the century. But grab what he's throwing out there that has an impact on Tesla and give it context, factual detail. And then have that hardcore legal team behind it, because if with that information, the press still does what Reuters did last week, well, then you have the fact that now the lawyers can run with it and say, look, you have misinterpreted again. Well, we're suing you.
Yeah. So you view it as a very low hanging fruit. Like this should be very low effort, low investment, overnight you should be able to implement this.
This is just about wanting to do it. And why should he do it? It's because you have to address the green crowd, which he usually doesn't address at all. These people are sitting there and they are there when we need them for support, when government comes in. Look, the story in Texas, where Texas buyers won't get the subsidies of Texas state for Teslas because Teslas don't have dealerships there, right? I mean, the story quickly died, fair enough, but that would have been a good story to actually explain more in detail to the general crowd that a stupid old law in Texas is actually counterproductive to Texas consumers. You could have made something out of that, given food for articles pro Tesla, or at least pro change of legislation in Texas, and it's just got a lost opportunity again.
Do you think this is just a result of having an engineer running the company, and perhaps because I'm trying to I think if I'm trying to put myself in his shoes, perhaps the thought process is, well, I know I'm doing everything. Elon talks about how he's always obsessed with the truth, and that's all he's going to focus on. And the company's mission is very clear. Every action that the company takes should speak for itself. The product speaks for itself. The community speaks for itself. So it's kind of like laying out the groundwork that says, hey, this is who we are, take it or leave it, And perhaps he's that kind of person.
It is, he's that type of person, very typical for the blue crowd. And while you address the blue crowd, that works perfectly well. They get it. They're even with you. The blue crowd will tell you, this is wonderful. One characteristic of the blues is that they think they're superior to the other three. Now, obviously, I'm in the other three, so I think they're not.
Sure. It's funny you say that, because I have quite a few engineer friends, and I would agree.
I actually use this. I use this tool a lot. I do business coaching. I do business coaching to immigration lawyers. I'm completely out of subject. What the heck? But typically lawyers are in the green field, right? And they have another problem: is they can't communicate with the other types. When an artist comes, they don't know what to do with the artist. When one of those bubbly people like me come, they don't know how to manage them. And so I have to train these lawyers and their paralegals and all the stuff around it, how to address the other three parts of the world. But anyway, so the blue people, once you understand this color coding stuff and you walk in the world and you see somebody is blue, you straight away know that that's their flaw, right? That they just think all the other three, what the heck, get used to it, do your homework, and you will learn. That's not how it works. These people, and especially doesn't work for those that you need in those other three color groups. Yeah. I do believe Elon has been slammed hard by the press, and I think he just gave up on them and thinks, what the heck? I think he tried until the end of 2019 for a long time and just thought, well, whatever good I give you, you're always distorting it. And I just wish he goes back to trying, because Tesla 2022 is not anymore Tesla 2017 to 2019, when it was still a struggle and had to be confirmed. There are now 110,000 employees, not 20 or 30,000. There are now 3 continents, and there's nearly no country in the world where no Teslas are driven anymore. So there is some more effort. What he does for Fremont, or in his head for Fremont, has an impact in Berlin, has an impact in Shanghai. So there's stuff that needs to just be clarified. I don't want anybody to spin it. I just want people to list the facts, make sure the language is more comprehensive than a 140 or 280 character tweet, and bring some context, reassures those that need to be reassured, puts the weight on those, because I saw your interview last week. I think it was with Warren. I don't remember, but where you discussed that, this is actually a good wake-up call, because some people will leave Tesla, and it's normal that they will leave. There is a cycle that has to be renewed. I completely agree with everything on that. It's just the only thing that I feel is missing is from the tweet to all these other actors, there needs to be facts clearly stated. And somebody needs to pick up the phone. I hear from all these press people, because press people come back to me. They suddenly have the hope that somebody, may bring up some change. They're frustrated. When they call it Tesla, they call Martin's number, and Martin is IR. He's not press. So he's not the right person for them to, to be called back or to give a statement. So if you already have this fact sheet out there, and again, it could be a blog post. Don't call it PR or don't call it a press release if that's the issue. But it will answer 3/4 of their questions. And at least the articles have to also name that part. And that may clear up lots of the noise.
Do you think that the move to put together that hardcore legal team that he was talking about, it's his attempt to try and get to the root of a problem of just trying to prevent any of this from happening in the first place? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I hope it would be that easy. And I would hope that would be great, right? But I just think that if the hardcore legal team has to argue, here is the tweet, here is your article, we want to sue you for that article, and there was nothing in the middle, that they have little basis for suing, right? I really hope this hardcore legal team will happen. And I do also think it will actually prevent just straight away some of the articles. A journalist will now think twice, thinking, oh my God, maybe he will sue me if I go too far. So that's a good thing. But if that legal team isn't quickly put in place, and it's actually there is no fact sheet that he should have referred to that journalist, it still leaves the door quite open, right? Mm-hmm. And so it also depends on the outcome of Twitter. I'd love for Elon to buy Twitter, but it put him obviously a target, not only in the front, but also on the back of his body.
Sure. What do you think about perhaps this doesn't happen unless Elon, whenever he decides to step down as CEO and says he gets more into a more engineering type role, closer to what SpaceX is, where you have Shotwell at president. Like, do you ever foresee this happening under, because I agree, it should be a very easy thing. It sounds very easy. It sounds very, it really does. But I wonder if it's just something that he's completely just non-negotiable on because of some of the points that, we've made and you've made is like, maybe he's just fed. He doesn't want to deal with that anymore. anymore. He wants to put in the lawyer team to try and prevent the things from even happening. And he's not going to bend on it until he steps down, and then whoever comes in then implements that sort of process. What do you think about that? Do you think this is just a lost cause until he decides to step down?
I hope he doesn't leave Tesla quickly. I love his genius, and I love that he is still CEO, but he has said on lots of occasions that he never wanted to be CEO. It was just by lack of finding anybody really appropriate, and that he's doing actually CEO work that is the last thing he likes doing.
Yep.
So the question is, who would be a good one? The feeling I get a little bit, and this is really only gut feeling, and I haven't done enough research for it to be knowledgeable, but I do have the feeling that the people, in his board of directors and all the others, none of them are groomed to become a CEO. I have the feeling each of them has their technical division or their financial division or whatever it is to look after, but none of them is the intuitive future number 2, maybe soon number 1, while Elon has a more technical role or a more consulting role or whatever. So it would have to be somebody from outside. And I can't see it, right? I mean, obviously I have no clue who might be out there, but Elon comes as a package deal, right? It's the genius, but it's also the awkwardness and the dominance and the fact that there's maybe nobody else who publicly can stand up to it. And while I love SpaceX and the way it's set up, he's also the press speaker for SpaceX, right? It's him that you hear. And so I'm not sure it will be easy to solve. And I'm actually surprised that the problem exists, right? I mean, we all know why it exists, but like you said, it seems so easy, such low fruit. Just get rid of it. Why do you need to use Tesla to be the ball in all this other communication? Because that would also separate Elon tweets that are personal, right? Him endorsing Caruso to become Los Angeles mayor, well, that's personal and has nothing to do with Tesla. And Tesla would never comment on that. And if there would be somebody sitting at Tesla and the journalist calling and saying, you know what, that's nothing to do with us. That's his business. But when the tweet concerns Tesla, well, then there is a fact sheet, then there is a detailed comment, and that would just separate the two roles he has. I mean, again, I don't want to stop any of his tweeting. I love it. I'm actually addicted to it, right? But I just wanna limit the damage it can do to Tesla, because it's unnecessary. It's so completely unnecessary.
Yeah, it does seem like one of the things that I've sort of learned a little bit about Elon, having been at Tesla, is that I don't think Tesla becomes Tesla unless Elon is a master delegator of sorts, because he surrounded himself with extremely talented people. For example, like the world that I lived in Tesla, we essentially helped build out an entire distribution network from scratch, and Elon's involvement was zero, and he just trusted the entire team to figure it out. And he's doing the same thing with many different parts of Tesla. It's so many different pieces. So it's curious to like I think the question becomes, why hasn't Elon decided to delegate out PR? It's such an interesting sort of thought exercise, because like why does he want control of that? So it's almost like, why doesn't he want anyone to control it? I guess it's the better question. And I think this is a helpful conversation.
Add one thing. I think PR is impossible. I don't think Elon would ever be on board, and I don't actually think he should be on board for PR in the traditional way, meaning,
when I say PR, I mean this sort of like clean communication of stuff that's going on.
Exactly. I think we have to be very clear of what we want from him.
Yes.
What we want from him is clear communication when it comes to Tesla. He puts out his tweet, and I actually think there's lots of benefit of him being sometimes brutal in his tweets, because it just gives this electroshock to everybody that we're back to work, or we're back to, being valued, maybe gotten rid of or whatever. It just brings everything back together and has this muscle moment, right? Yeah. But if we just ask for clean communication in the minutes or short hours after a tweet is out, so that the press at least cannot pretend that they can misinterpret it and there's nobody who's ever cleaned it up, that would just bring the whole noise level further down.
Do you think that has contributed at all to Tesla's recent stock movements versus the rest of the market? How do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, the whole Twitter thing, for me, while I love the idea, certainly weighing heavily on Tesla first because he had to sell some stock, which was done quickly, which is good, rather than dragging it out like in December. That was another, not sure the cleverest way of doing it. That obviously kept on it. And then the macro market is bad. And whenever the market is -1, Tesla is -2, right? Just because it has a bigger beta. And whenever there are good news, you just feel, oh, there comes another tweet or there comes another something. And back we are, right? +6, -7. And so the whole movement comes in a market that is already stressed out just because of macroeconomic reasons. Him saying, or maybe he didn't actually say how bad he feels about the economy, because I don't know, I never saw that original email, right? That one that Reuters preferred to. But I mean, feeling super bad about the economy is obviously something where everybody first goes, oh, what's that now? Let's sell, right? And when you have so much day trading and when you have so many other forces against you, and I mean, let's just face it, there are lots of forces against Elon now. And then Tesla is the most liquid stock to play it out.
Yeah. Do you think there might be a case where Elon is underestimating just how much influence he has over markets?
Yeah, how much influence and how many enemies he has. I don't think he has a clue how many people hate him, which is unbelievable because if you look into the guy for half an hour, you can only love him, right?
Yeah, right.
But that's just it. I mean, he is shaking up things that are working very well, and I'm currently working on the ESG rating scam, and I'm quite far ahead. I hope I will publish that in the next couple of days. But what they are trying, and when I mean they, it's really the establishment, and it's not only America. This goes to the World Economic Forum. This goes to quite a lot of institutional and money. You have no idea, billions and trillions of money that they're trying to lock into this ESG rating scam. And he's obviously not having it. And they made a mistake by throwing Tesla out because that's just, that has drawn the attention to it. And people like me now look into it much more and realize what a scam it is. But if he continues being outspoken against ESG, there are on the other side huge players. The Bill Gates story is no coincidence. Bill Gates being short on Tesla is no coincidence, and Bill Gates can be found in that whole ESG line again and again and again and again. So there is stuff happening. Let's not be naive. It's really big politics and it's powerful.
Wow. So there's been a lot of conversations around that in the community for a little while, how, Elon is, he's always been shaking the tree. He goes against the grain. He makes enemies when he's doing his thing. And there's this, I remember when like back 2017, 2018, I've been invested in it since 2012. But I remember the whole thing was like the oil lobby is going to be pissed off. And I remember the FUD attacks in 17, 18, 19, and all these things that may or may not have been funded by a different party, whatever. But now I think what's very interesting, and you alluded to this, that Tesla 2022 is a different monster than Tesla 2017 or 2019, where the influence of the company and the disruption to not just electric vehicles, but entire industries and economies and ways of valuing these things are being shooken up to the core. And these are people that are part of those industries that have a lot of influence, a lot of power, a lot of money. And they're not going to go down, just be like, yeah, okay, go ahead, Elon, that's all yours. They're not going to do that, right?
And exactly. And add to that energy as a whole, right? Energy is huge. Energy is biggest capitalizations on this world. And then add to it that we're now in the Ukraine war, Russia, gas, petrol. So there's lots of stuff happening, right? Him delivering Starlink to Ukraine, heroic, but just another target on his back. Now he already had, right? I don't know how many targets on his back, but there is another one. The Twitter thing, for me, the free speech is so important, and I'm so happy he's tackling that, but they're not going to go down. I mean, they have the US media and the worldwide media, because it all plugs in, right? Has been very cozy in how they determine what's today's subject, what we're shoveling under the rug, what we want to promote and what we don't want to promote. Now, if suddenly there would be the marketplace of free speech, Twitter, their whole model falls to pieces. if there is Twitter who is more honest, less censorship, just lets it all stream, even if it's just natural stream, that is going against all the other social media platforms, but all against the media as a whole, the whole press, everything. Twitter will become, and that's why it's so important he would go through, but that's why he's also such a target. Now, energy is the second subject. Now, so media, that's a problem, energy. But for me, what's even much more worrying, just because I hate government so much, is all the regulators. So it's the rating agencies, but it's also this whole spider web, how money is flown, the whole benchmark business. When a fund, lots of these ETFs now says we're tracking the S&P 500 or the S&P 500 ESG, they have to pay licensing fees to S&P. This is one of the big sources of income. So more assets are under management in a fund that's an S&P 500 tracker, more licensing fees go to these rating agencies. Now let's think about it. What does that mean? That means that actually S&P is the asset manager, because by S&P determining who is in the S&P 500, you certainly remember how it was when Tesla got included, and it came much too late, right? All their boxes were ticked for lots of quarters prior to them finally making up their mind. Well, that's a deliberate manipulation of the whole market, because by saying, okay, finally we're giving in, there's too much noise, we have to let them into the index, that means that all these funds now have to buy. And that's what made the whole stock price increase then, the Tesla stock. So this whole construct they're setting up on steering where money is allocated, and also with ESG, again, it will become much clearer once I'm through with preparing my slides, but this is all done to lock in people, to make them handcuffed on what they communicate, how much data they deliver to S&P, how they answer certain questions, whether they pay the rating fees, surprise. And so this whole system works because so many players play it. Play the game. So many. Let me give you an example, which I was going to spare for my presentation, but let's give you exclusivity on it. So when S&P does these ESG ratings, they actually have 4 or 5 different types of rating. And one thing they publish, which is called the yearbook. And in the yearbook, they give gold medals and silver medals and bronze medals to the best of us. And they do that by sector, right? And so they have the automobile sector. So who do you think in the latest yearbook won the gold medal in the automobile sector?
Definitely not Tesla. I can tell you that.
No. Now give me a guess who would be the leader. I'm giving you a good indicator.
Volkswagen. No, GM.
GM.
Yeah, of course.
There you go.
Mary Barra. How can I forget? Oh my God.
There you go. Gold medal together with Hyundai. Hyundai got it for the global market, and they got it for the US market.
Wow.
Okay. So that just shows it all, where we are with the ESG ratings. And they're trying to do with these ESG ratings what they did 30, 40 years ago with credit ratings. You couldn't issue any debt without going through that loophole of going through rating agencies and paying them the bribe and the money to rate them. And now they're trying the same with ESG. That's exactly what they're doing. And they're doing it with lots of worldwide institutions that go all the way level up to that Davos World Economic Forum, who has set up special structure called ESSB to look after all. I mean, I've been working for it for now a couple of weeks. It's horrendous. Wow. Horrendous. And so there you come, Don Quixote, our Elon in person, saying, I'm not taking any of this. So you think he's making friends?
You make such good points. It's hard to argue. It almost seems like the man is, I don't know if he's accidentally or on purpose on a mission to try and somehow either uncover or disrupt or just destroy this sort of long-standing way of doing business in the world, almost because this is where all the money is. It seems like, I'm not really tied into that world at all, but it sounds like that's
and locking it up. And I can tell you, and there are some of the big players out there, and I'm currently accumulating all the proofs. And it's actually good because me speaking out about it, people reach me and talk. And I'm like, crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. I mean, you remember the period with the flamethrower? I just wish he could use that to just berserk them all out, right?
It's like, you ever watch the Batman movie with the Joker with the huge pile of money? He just like lights it on fire. Man, I mean, that's like, how do you not make every single enemy in the world when you're really, really disrupting that much on Earth? You know, I wonder, do you think that people close to him are talking to him about this kind of stuff? Like, do you think he's hearing this sort of narrative and this sort of,
I hope Larry Elder does.
Okay.
You know, it also takes, I don't want to put myself on the pedestal at all, right? But it takes a little bit that experience of having been a fund manager, having been in those rating agencies to see what's happening. Because if you haven't seen it from the inside, how manipulated this all is, and if you now don't put the dots together, and again, even me doing it now, I mean, some evenings I'm just sitting there, wow, you know, can I even say that? You know, do I want to put myself in the position of throwing this all out there? Because, you know, who am I? I'm sitting here in Santa Barbara doing
You're gonna start making enemies.
For entrepreneurs. Exactly. What do I need to be the hero now? I'm not sure, right? But somebody needs to do it. And I mean, if that can be my little contribution to help him. Again, I don't know yet whether I'll do a video of 10 minutes just summing it all up, because it needs so much explaining that I feel that I can't just do it in a couple of tweets, right? That's one of my big things the last 2 or 3 days. Okay, so I know where I want to bring this. I know my conclusions. But how do I make this understand to somebody who hears this all for the first time? Do I need to do a sort of an educational video about it? That would be big for me to prepare, because it's a lot of work. Or do I just do a couple of slides, but then people may not understand what I'm trying to get over?
I mean, I think doing some sort of video would probably be the best way to, like, if I'm thinking about that same sort of example of the 4 colors, like how, like, what are the things you can do to ensure that the majority of the audience is able to digest the information? Because this is complicated stuff. Like, I understand it at the surface, but I'm nowhere near as deep into it as you are, obviously. And I think having some sort of way to really follow it very easily, it's gonna help a lot of people. But obviously, if you have the bandwidth, right? I mean, I know you're extremely busy, you have stuff going on, so it's like, it's one of those things that, you know,
it's really funny. It's become a priority in my life now. I mean, Don't get me wrong, I have my clients and I love fighting for their green cards, and that's my job. But
sure,
it becomes an obsession, because you understand how badly Elon and hence Tesla are treated. And again, this is not about the stock price. I'm in here for the next 10 years. I'm working. I don't need the immediate money. But it is true that when you see how bad they are treated, you want to help. You want to bring your bucket to the game. But it is very time intensive. Yeah, I mean, I can take all the help I can get, and that's why I'm jumping on. When you said you want to come on, I said, I'm jumping on.
This is great. I mean, I love the fact that we're so like. I love the fact that we're having this conversation, because this is making me sort of more confident in, is that I had a gut feel for the longest time. I had a gut feel that there is going to be a time in Tesla's growth trajectory where they're going to face, you know, when you think 2017, 2018, 2019 FUD and anti-Tesla stuff, or where it was going, if they really get to the point like we talked about, where they're going to become this massive player on the world economy, like, this is just the beginning. It appears like this is just the beginning.
And you know, 2017 to 2019, they had the hope still to kill it. And they didn't manage, no matter how bad it is. Now they know they can't kill it anymore, and they get more furious. It is much, what can happen now is much worse, but can be toned down if at least we get the basics out.
What do you think about what about a potential future where, you know, if you can't beat them, join them? Do you, because, you know, if in the end, if a lot of these folks,
not with Elon. I mean, he will never do that, and
Elon.
I'm so proud of him that he won't, because
I mean, the other way around. I mean, they will join Elon. I mean, the other way around. Not that Elon would join them. I
mean, what it would take is actually destructuring quite a lot of things they've put in place. You know, never underestimate government. And the cutest form is what they call PPP, public-private partnerships. That's where it all comes together. That's the scariest part. But anyway, it is it's not easy to dismantle. I think there's actually a big threat to democracy in a lot of countries that don't even realize yet. So if you think there may be a threat to democracy, how easy would it be for a single man, even with his Tesla army in the back, to dismantle all the FUD that is against him? Now, what may work for him is that the transition to electric cars, to Tesla becoming a big energy player, and to all these things actually happens despite it, right? By growth, you force them to accept that you exist and you don't go away anymore, right? And so there may be an opening, whatever. But where I really am afraid, I had this discussion before, is whether FSD will really become federally available. You know, and I always hear the counter argument, let's see, once it works in Florida, New York cannot say they don't do it anymore, right? Well, wait and see. I'm quite skeptical on, you know, how easy that will become, but it is becoming a subject. So what does that mean? Let's say FSD becomes available as a robotaxi function in Florida, but not in, I don't know, Georgia. Mm-hmm. So a robotaxi has to stop at the border between Florida and Georgia. See, I mean, that's the whole problem with the federal state in America. Right. So it could never do a long haul just because it would get out of the state. Well, what's that? I mean,
I'm still surprised at the fact that something like a U.S. government isn't just hitching the ride on Tesla as hard as they should because of stuff like this, right? That if they, which again kind of like plays towards I have this feeling that everything's freaking corrupt. I can't get past it.
It is. It's not a feeling. It is.
And I'm trying so hard to not fall into this camp. Like I'm trying to be very logical and I'm trying to be very open-minded and I'm trying to take stuff step by step. But the deeper I get into it, the more I talk to people like yourself, the more I really think through why certain things aren't happening. And I'm like, this can't be ignorance at this point. It just can't be ignorance. It has to be premeditated. It has to be done on purpose, you know?
Yeah, it is. Man. It is. It is, and they're coming from all sides. And him getting in the political arena and wanting to buy Twitter tripled the people coming from all sides.
And so do you think he did the whole Twitter purchase? Do you think that was in an effort to try and begin the process of decorruption, or do you think it's two separate? You think it's part of that?
Yeah, clearly. I mean, he needs a platform.
Walk me through that. Yeah.
He needs in my view, he needs a platform where he's sure that his message gets out uncensored. Because if you see, I mean, you may be pro or against Trump, but the simple fact that the president of the United States isn't on no social media platform allowed anymore is just absolutely unthinkable, right? Yeah. Whether you're for or against him, they shut the guy up, right? Yeah. So what would happen if somebody, I don't even know whether they're sitting in Davos or in Washington or whatever, turns the switch on Elon and says, he's not acceptable anymore. Take him off, turn him off.
Man.
What then?
Yeah. Yeah, I had this sort of my initial thought process around the Twitter acquisition. I thought that it was perhaps some sort of, obviously he talks about the freedom of speech angle and all that stuff like that. But initially I thought that it was more of like an AI safety play in a way to try and get exposed to the algorithms that are driving society's discussions and how echo chambers can really break down civilization slowly over time by pitting people against each other. And
that's true. All that's true. That's true, but I think above all, it's also him being able to be heard.
Which makes sense. I think it makes a lot of sense when I'm just so mind blown right now.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Did I give you a headache?
No, please. No, this is great. These are all gut feelings that I've had that I've been having a tough time verbalizing and trying to figure out if it was actually true or not, and to have someone like yourself who has been exposed to that world a little bit, at least a lot bit. I mean, you really were part of Moody's and you were part of the rating agencies and really were exposed to how the sausage was made, and you have sort of that financial background, and it really helps. It helps me put into context exactly what's going on. So let me ask you this hypothetical question: what do you think happens here in the next 12 months? Like, if you're going to put Tesla and Elon, what do you think is going to happen in the next 12 months, given where we are now?
Now, let me explain that in two phases. One is my personal investments. I only have 2024 leaps and stock. I did usually do shorter options. I'm not doing any of those at the moment for macroeconomic reasons, but also because I think the headwind for Tesla is going to be horrible. When I have cash, happened yesterday, just because, did the accounts of my company, knew how much I could take myself out again, I buy stock and that's it. I have my couple of leaps that I wanted to have for 2024 and I'm comfortable with them. I have them at a strike of 900. That's still a strike I'm very comfortable with. Mm-hmm. So do I know what all these bad actors will do the next 12 months for Elon? I don't know, but I have this, this may sound funny, but I have this motherly feeling I want to protect him, right? Sure. So when I wrote my thread that's still pinned, it was really, I felt like, Guy, you're putting yourself out there a lot and you will get burned, and we don't need you burned. We need you as strong and as possible. And then I reasoned myself. I said, come on, Alexandra, come back to your little place. You're not his mom. You don't need to protect him. You don't need to go there. But you see, I think we all have so much admiration for the guy that, sorry to call him the guy, but he's also a guy. Yeah. We have so much admiration for him that there's just this overload of love and protection. We want to make sure we can do our part. Now, what I do hope is that he understands there are a few quick fixes that will bring the noise level a bit down, and that actually his message will be better heard if he brings that noise level down. If he lets himself run into all these open subjects, he will fight too many wars at a time. You have to also choose which war you want to win now. And if you fight on all fronts all the time, you lose focus. Not focus for Tesla. Tesla is, you're better placed than me, but Tesla is working and improving daily on such a rapid pace that I'm not worried about Tesla as a business, not a second. But just him being focused in the messages he wants to get out, and he needs to get out. He's actually my only hope in this world, I can tell you, in terms of cleaning it up. Yeah. Again, we can come back to Trump. He certainly did what his voters hoped he would do, is disrupt a lot of the political messaging. Whether you supported it or not is a completely other subject, but he had some merit of disrupting. Elon does it on every front, not only political.
Yeah. Do you ever worry about his health and like well-being with it? Like, forget the attacks, but like the amount of, I don't even know if he feels the stress of what he's going through right now. Like, right? Does that ever cross your mind about like, man, this guy might freaking
I just hope he's in good health, and I hope he knows how to preserve it. It's funny, somebody asked the other day on Twitter to everybody, not only to me, what would you do if you have 1 hour of Elon's attention? And spontaneously, I thought the same thing that I still think now, 10 days later. I just want to invite him for a good dinner and have him relax, having good food. Just, no questions about anything. Just relax, be happy. Want to talk, kids want to talk, whatever you want. Don't matter. Yeah. Don't have to redo the world in an hour again. Just, it's all okay. We're watching your videos. We're understanding your message. You don't need to talk to me about it. Just relax and let us know what you want to eat and drink, and let's have a good time.
Yeah. Did you see that one interview of May, his mom, that I think she said something along the lines of, because they were talking about the Twitter thing. I think it was at the Met Gala, and May's like, I did tell him to not to try and change the world, but he just keeps doing it, or something along those lines, And I'm like, wow, like that seemed a lot more sincere than a joke. Like, I think she actually means it. It's like,
and I can completely feel that. I when you have children, you want them to do good and you want to encourage them to do as much good. But at one moment, you also need to preserve them. And it must be actually tough for her to see everything he wants to do. And it's all good. That none of those missions are in any way criticizable. But you intuitively feel that this is too much. This is too much on the shoulders of a single man. And, just give yourself some slack. You don't need to change it all yourself. Try to find allies. Try to build this up in a more constructed manner.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And I think that's the one thing you alluded to is that I think that's why the Tesla community is so willing to fight for him, because I think all of us feel this in some way, and we're like, like you're doing all these great things. It's so admirable, but we can tell that you may need a little bit of backup. So, that's why we have the FUD fighters, that's why we had all the Twitter folks and all the YouTube folks and everybody really around the community that's coming together around this man who's
this
really,
is so unique.
I've never seen it before. Never.
I mean, either. This is crazy. And I've always been very sensitive to trends and stuff moving, and some of it I could join and some of it I would never, but I've never seen anything like that. And so much, emotion, positive emotion. I don't know whether it's always love, but we all want to help, and we may not all agree on how to do it, but we all know we want to help.
Yeah. So much passion. There's so much passion in this community. It's crazy. And I got to experience it firsthand during that Giga Texas week too, as a part of the community. Cause I always had an inkling, the online community is super, super strong. And the reason why I found the company in the first place was because of a forum back in 2012, and Dave Lee was posting on it. And I got to discover the forum. Then I got to work at the company, and then I came out of it. And then we go to that Giga Texas week, and I see it with my own two eyes, the other people that are just as passionate about Tesla than I am. I'm like, this is the weirdest thing I've ever experienced in my life. One of the greatest things ever, but it's, to your point, it's so weird. It's so unique.
It is. And that was the reason I didn't want to come. And you may actually help me overcome that. I was like, it's one thing having my Twitter image and, posting my 10 tweets a day and having so many people like it or hate it or whatever. But that's one thing. And then I thought, oh my God, but showing myself, right? The first video was the same, getting in touch with these people. Is it real? So tell me, is it real?
It's real. It's real. And I'll tell you the thing that's even driving me closer to the camp of like, there's never been anything like this ever, is even within the little community that I'm starting to build on my channel. We have a Discord and my Patreons who've supported the channel, which I'm extremely thankful for. Like I get to talk to these folks on a very regular basis. And we have these community forums every Friday where we record videos together and we put it out. And with every single one of them, I'm like, man, like if I've met this person and like this person in real life before I met them through this, I would vibe with them and be their friends like that. Like immediate. It's like there's just this crazy connection between the.
But even for old people like me.
What do you mean talking about old people? Everybody. Come on, get out of here. Everybody is such a. It is really such a beautiful thing. It's the first time. It's always, there's this whole saying around, like in the end, ideas win. In the end, these are the things that are really important in life. And this is like a very unique community that I'm finding a lot of people who really are just trying to move society forward in the best way they can, in the most honest way they can, with essentially, from what I can gather, most of the people with zero bad intent or with trying to take advantage of the situation. People are honestly trying to move society forward, and they found this person, an Elon, that appears to be the leader in a public setting who is against the grain and is really trying to. He's almost becoming like a voice for the everyday person that really wants to make change happen. And every time he gets into these quote unquote fights with, say, establishments or things that are at the very least not correct, and at the worst very corrupt, right? Like you can't help but get behind them. And then you have all these people around that you can talk about it with, and we're all like sharing the ideas and really talking about like why this is so important. And you can't help but feel like this is the weirdest, greatest thing ever. And it's hard,
and it's so genuine, right? It is so good-hearted that. And then the one thing I'm always careful, because people outside of the sphere that look at us go, oh, it's a cult, right? This is a cult. Yeah. And I'm like, this is not a cult. I mean, I can criticize the guy I just did earlier, right? I told you what can still be improved. It's on the margin, but why not? It's not a cult. And why is it not a cult? Because this is not about religion. This is not about something fictitious that, somebody wants to pretend there is an afterlife or there is something, whatever. This is real life. And he's actually more real than much of the other corrupt stuff that has been built up pretending it's real.
Yeah.
And so a cult would have an element to it that's building up a fantasy. There is no fantasy here. This is all real.
I mean, the whole basis of the community is based around the fact that you should always look at things, from a first principles perspective. You're always trying to be less wrong. And like the idea here is to really try to put your best effort to figure out exactly what is going on and be open about talking about ideas freely. The whole free speech thing reinforces that idea. So it just seems like everything is based on correct things, and of course there are flaws in, the whole communication thing we talked about, but these are very minor things compared to like the whole movement almost. Like I don't even know how to describe it. And it's like, I always tell everybody that I'm always afraid. Like I've stopped bringing up Tesla, Elon, anything like that. I'm never the first person that brings it up ever.
I heard only you say that to Kim yesterday. I know. And us, it's the same. So we were driving back from Vegas. We had to come back early. And we were 6 hours in the car, my husband and me. That's the brilliant moment, right? When you've had lots of children, you've cherish those moments when you have your partner a couple of hours by yourself in a car. It's just, and in a Tesla is obviously better. So we were talking about that. We're like, us, we live and breathe Tesla, right? Every day there is not one day, but as soon as we're with a third person that we don't know whether it's pro or against it, we will never bring the subject up. Just look at each other like, don't you stop.
Well, the weather is kind of warm today. What did you do?
Exactly.
You're
like trying to figure out.
I know. Oh my God. That was such an excellent lunch. It's funny because I know sometimes with my wife, I'll because I obviously my channel is Tesla centric, Elon centric, and all that stuff. And even with my wife, I'll like find myself talking to her about Tesla and Elon, and she does that too as well. But like sometimes she'll be like, okay, can we talk about something else? Like, can we like talk about something else? Can we switch the topic here? But I'm like, you don't get it. Like freaking, this is what happened. And she's like, let's talk about something else. I'm like, okay.
I've done with my kids. My kids is actually funny because there are Tesla fans and then there are also the less Tesla fans who are driving Subarus. Shame on us. But I've learned with the kids as well, just there's no point. You can't convince somebody. I think everybody has to grow into that. And I mean, I only know about Tesla for 2 years now. So, you're all, when I look at you 10 years, I'm like, wow, how wonderful and how early and how, what a good understanding you had. When we came in 2014 to the US, my husband absolutely wanted an electric car. We bought a BMW i3, that little thing, right? Cute car. I mean, we're very ecological, very electric car. So we had that for 2 or 3 years. Then we wanted to change, but the M3, I was on the waiting list, but it wasn't available. We needed a car. So we changed to the Bolt. Now, shame on me, right? But there we go. And it was actually a decent car. I mean, it was nothing to do, whatever. And then this one came up in the middle of COVID and we were able to change it to an M3. And 3 months later, we also bought the MY just because that was it. And the moment I had my butt in it, test driving it in March, which is the lowest moment in the stock at that moment, March 2022, I came back from the Tesla store and that was it.
Wow.
Full believer. And so I do believe there is still so many people to be convinced, but it's so easy to convince them. Just put them in the car. I've convinced so many people since. We have the best friends. Our best friends are 70 and 80, really, above boomers. And they met us last time we were in Vegas. We went to the supercharger together. They saw an X-Plaid. We talked to the owners of the X-Plaid there. They have since ordered a Y Performance and an X-Plaid, right? Wow. 70 and 80. And they're waiting for it. Every day I get a message because he follows me now on Twitter and he goes, a couple more days, and then I'll have it. And she's going to watch this and he'll say, I saw the shout out to me. But that's it. But you see, all it takes for us is get those people sit in a Tesla or try one or gas prices going even higher. So the good news is actually the product itself and the company are performing so well that is the strongest support for Elon, right? His mission is well advanced. It's still not done, for sure not, but it's well advanced. I also am very hopeful on the bot. I think the bot is going to change a lot of other things, bring new enemies to the table, but he will be there. And I think Tesla's AI is exactly what is needed for these bots. So I'm very positive on a lot of things, but will there be lots of fighting going on? Yes, there will.
Yeah.
And we better don't have any illusion about this.
Yeah, for sure. I think the old adage of the more Tesla sells, the more Tesla sells, It's like the more cars are out there, the more people will see them and test drive them, and the more they're going to sell. The Hertz deal, I think, was a brilliant move. It was almost like a marketing move in a way, because you're expanding the pool of people that can get into a Tesla. I'm wondering if Elon will ever release they've talked about the Tesla network at some point, where it's like an Uber-like network with Teslas. I mean, I know they've talked about it within the context of a robotaxi network, but I'm wondering if they'll, maybe they'll use that as a way to say it's like an Uber competition, and it's only Tesla owners and Tesla drivers, but maybe you charge and you give a cut to the driver. But if you use full self-driving, maybe, I don't know, you get a bigger cut. I have no idea. I'm sure there's different ways of incentivizing it, but it's really just mind blowing to see that growth. And it's a very exciting time. Let me hit you with one more topic before we wrap up. You have 5 kids. How is that like? What is that
Actually,
like?
Thank you for bringing that up, because one thing I would like to use my little public exposure to is encourage people to make kids.
Sure.
And I do have the feeling that the generation of the 20 to 35-year-old, I mean, there may be good reasons not to make kids, but they never hear the good reasons to make kids. Okay. And I would really like people to consider that, because the biological clock of a woman is very limited. And I was very fortunate that I started early, which was more an accident than anything. I was pregnant and there was no reason not to have the baby. And I love babies and I had it. And then every 3 years I had another one, and I had a divorce in the middle. It wasn't always smooth sailing. I was twice made redundant in the middle of all this. I mean, There was lots of stuff that was happening that could have prevented me of making further children. And I just kept on going. I didn't ask myself, is it perfect? Do I have the money to pay their studies 20 years later and all that? And today I'm really, really, really happy I never let those logistical issues become a deterrent for not making children. When those 5 are together against me, I have no chance. Like 0 chance. And they leak together very well. One by one, I may still have a chance, but when they're together, there's no chance. But it is the most beautiful thing I did in life. And I think I did quite a lot of good things, but nothing even comes close to it. And I just want to be that person that maybe somebody hears today, and maybe I have other occasions to say it. If you can make children, do it. If you can't make them now, freeze the eggs. I know this is something nobody wants to talk about, but there is a biological clock, and I really want to encourage people to do this. This is a subject that's so important, and there is only so much time left. And there's good reasons having children. There's so many good reasons having children.
What was the most surprising thing to you about having kids?
How much love it generates. It generates in yourself as a parent, comes back from the child, brings the whole family together. And I don't want to romanticize this whole thing. I mean, it's a tough job. It's a tough job, and look for a partner that can do his share. It's really, really tough. Single parents have all my admiration, because my gosh, I was very lucky that my husband was more active. I'd even say he had more than 50% of it. He was doing the cooking all the time. He was doing the school runs. So look for somebody that is, today, parenthood is not the same than it had to be in the old days. It's not about a woman and a man and a classic family and all that. It can be much different things. So be open about it. But the most surprising is that family, in good and in bad moments, is the strongest ally you can have. Can have perfect friends. There's no doubt about it. But there is something very special between the bond of a parent and a child.
Wow, that's beautifully said. Were you how happy were you when you heard, or what was the feeling when you heard Elon talk about the fact that we need to have more babies as a population because of population decline? What sort of feelings?
I'm so happy he's talking about it, because it is a subject. Lots of people actually, especially in this environmental group of people, think that we have too many people, that it's overpopulated, that we don't have the resources for it. And it's very good that he put a highlight on it, that is not the issue, and it's certainly not an issue in our part of the world. And it's not an issue for privileged people like we are. I mean, we love what we do, all of us, right? But can you imagine who else has an hour to talk about Tesla and whether they should put communication involved or whatever, right? We're so privileged, Taza, right?
We are.
And then one thing I want to ask you, I mean, when we started this interview, you talked about your mom. And when you talked about your mom, you were nearly glowing as much as your wife, nearly, making sure I'm doing this politically correct, right? But don't you agree there's something very special between the child and the parent?
There is. I mean, there really is. I think the older I get, the more I appreciate my parents, to be completely honest. And it's one of those things that, my wife and I don't have kids yet, but we're planning on starting a family here very soon. And the closer we get like to that moment, the more I'm like, man, like my parents really, they've done so much. They've done so much to ensure that my future was good, and that came from a place of pure love, and I feel it. I'm almost getting emotional talking about it because it's it's very it's a special thing. And I think, of course, like growing up as a kid, you're going to have like the fights with the parents and blah, blah, blah. There's going to be all these things. But the older I get, the more I come to realize just how pure their love is and how lucky I was to have that in my life. I really am. And I mean,
you're little, but you'll have lots to give to your child.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm very excited to, as well as a parent, hopefully in the coming very soon here with my wife. And I couldn't have found a better partner. Like my wife is, I truly believe, the best person in the world. And so I literally don't feel I don't know how I can be any luckier than I am as a person, period. And I think, and I'm very excited to embark on that journey of becoming a parent, because I know, I think one of the important things that maybe that we've done as a couple, my wife and I, is that we really have tried our best to ensure we are as happy as we possibly can be, in order to ensure that when we bring children to the world, that they are also that they're brought into a place of love, that they're brought into a place where there's happiness.
And you see, and that's much more important than logistics, right?
Yeah.
When I hear people tell me, well, it's not the right moment, it's not the right time, there's never a right moment. I can tell you, for having had 5 kids, there is never a right moment, and shit will happen whether you're pregnant or not. With it just, that's the word it is. But that's your adult life. You're giving life and love to a child, and logistics don't matter to that child. Do you think the child cares whether you live in a 3-bedroom villa or a 5-bedroom villa? The only thing he cares about is that you drive a Tesla, right? But other than that,
the most important part is that we have a Tesla.
There we are. What else do we need?
Yeah. I'm very excited to embark on that journey, and honestly, it's I do hope that trend changes, because if you really think about our civilization, like our species survival, it's so incredibly important, and it's something that, it never ggets talked about. And if it does get brought up, it's like, at least from the circles that I was in, it was always like, well, we have too many people. We already can't feed the people that we have. We have, however many number of people in poverty and blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, well, let's actually analyze what's the case. Is that because we don't have enough food as a world? Or is that because we're just very bad at ensuring that the food is getting to the right places, and that we have the right ways of supplying those countries and the infrastructure? Like guys, let's actually analyze the problem. Like, knowing how things. Anyway, I could go on and on about that, but I think thank you for delivering that message, because I think it is important, and especially for like people in my generation. I'm 35, and I just started seeing some of my like friend groups. A couple of them I had kids earlier, but I do see a delay, like a very big delay of when people are starting to have kids. But I'm starting to see people starting to have kids, and my wife and I are really. How old
is your wife?
She's 33. Yeah.
Okay, well, keep on going.
Yeah. Yeah. So
and enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's it's one thing that I'm very excited for, and we're both very excited for. So I can't wait to have a little kiddo. So thank you so much for this. Wow, my God. What a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on, and you're welcome back anytime. I really appreciate your insight. I hope people I'm sure they'll find it super helpful what you conveyed in this podcast, really the whole conversation. If you don't mind, list your socials or anything you have for the people listening.
Sure, I'll give that. So the Twitter is Madame Alexandra. So I'll give it to you so you can post it under the video. Lots of them know me also as the Tesla Boomer Mama, and I'm very proud to be the Tesla Boomer Mama. And very happy to interact with everybody. I really try to spare some time every day to keep active in that community. I'm very, very thankful for my Twitter family.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. And I hope you guys enjoy the conversation. Check the description below for the socials for Alexandra, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Appreciate you guys. Thank you, Alexandra. Awesome.